know that I made it out of credit access and into the actual mortgage process stage. So that was what happened this past week. I made it out of credit access. I was able to complete my bank loan application, and I am now officially in the mortgage process. So, what else has been happening? What have I done? So, my last full update was where I shared with you inspection day and the fact that I got my report back so timely and it was uploaded. And so, what has happened since that point, in addition to me moving from that phase, is that the hand department, which is NACA's unit that covers repairs, rehabilitation, things of that nature, they reviewed my inspector's report and then they released a list of required repairs that must occur before closing. And so then what I have to do as a buyer, along with my realtor, is look at those repairs. There weren't many, maybe a handful. And we already knew about a couple of those items, and the seller had already started the process of addressing those things because we saw them when I went to view the home initially. But in any case, there were a handful of repairs, maybe less than 2,000, just under $2,000 in required repairs. There were some recommended repairs, but they were things such as, um, like for example, the water heater was fine, but it was a recommendation to replace it in the future, things like that. But beyond that, the home was maintained so well. You can see that through the inspection photos and some of the others that I've shared so far. But in any case, my realtor and I talked about those repairs. We'd already kind of knew what was happening and presented the information to um, the sellers. The seller has agreed to make all repairs with the exception of one that was very minor, very minor. And I'm hoping not completing that one minor repair doesn't hold me up, because what NACA does is for those things that are required, they have to be addressed prior to closing. There are a couple of exceptions where you can sign a waiver, but NACA has to approve that waiver. So the one repair that wasn't agreed upon by the seller was to purchase or install updated smoke detectors, or a smoke detector and a carbon monoxide detector, because the carbon monoxide detector was beyond the I guess the lifespan. I believe the recommendation is for 10 years, and so it was older than that, and there was a required um, item on there for those. And that was the only thing that the seller did not agree to. Everything else, done deal. Windows, a small leak, something with the trim near the chimney, and windows, small leak, windows, small leak, trim. See, I can't even, oh, an outlet. There was one outlet that some kind of way ended up being reversed. And so my inspector was very thorough. He caught all those things. They were included in my report. And as a matter of fact, I bragged on that report last time. And let me just show y'all my nerdy self. I done created me a notebook. This me, okay? I done put the front and the back of the house on my notebook, okay? But that's not really what I want to show you. The nerd in me, I keep everything sorted. This is just another tip. Keep all your information together. So even though I store everything electronically, those things that I really want to just kind of go back and look at, I keep in my binder here. But what I wanted to show you is the way the inspector did this report. I mean, it came with full color pages. Trying to make sure I don't show you too much. but it came with, you know, descriptions, recommendations, dimensions, you know, full color photos of the different areas and parts of the home, you know. And as a matter of fact, here's a picture of the carbon monoxide item that was here. So yeah, see. So he gives a detailed description of every item. But anyway, I love this. I'm such a nerd, you know, I had to create me a binder. So I digress. Anyway, what I was saying was the seller did agree to all items except for that one item. And so the hand department basically says, hey, once you figure out who's going to do what, let us know. This is also the time that you get to submit a wish list if you so desire. So let's say, you know, depending upon your price and your affordability, maybe you have a lot of cushion or some extra items that you can build in there, or maybe you saw some other things in the home that you want to add to it. For example, let's say that the floors were wooden, but I wanted a certain areas tile. That would be a wish list item that, for consideration with the hand department. But anyway, hand gives you this full list of required as well as recommendations. And another recommendation that was interesting that I actually heard about when I went to the hand webinar last week was that, hey, make sure your property is free and clear. I'm not talking about the title portion, but the title search, that's going to happen. But make sure there aren't any outstanding fines on the property itself, because those are things that attach to the property and not the person. And so you don't want to purchase this property and find out there are some other types of fines on the property. So you can do that type of search with your local municipality. You can find out, contact, you know, the county offices, and they can share with you how to do that. And so while I, you know, trust, you know, this process, that's just another layer of something to think about and to pursue. So I'll look at that this week. So another thing that has occurred with that hand department, because my seller has agreed, we had to do an addendum to the contract. And so with that being said, that addendum was circulated, and it basically states these are the repairs, you know, that are being agreed to by the seller. I sign, and that has to be uploaded as well. So what basically happens is, to get hand cleared, they want to see that these repairs are being done. So the seller has already started, you know, getting their approved individuals to fix those items. And what will happen is the seller would then provide my realtor and I with the copies of those invoices, and they have to be uploaded to the web portal. Something very important to note is everything you do for hand has to be, you know, uploaded to the web file. They don't want you emailing them anything. As a matter of fact, once you transition to this space, you do get a hand coordinator to work directly with you. And so at this point, I've received about 2 calls from hand in the past week or so. At the very beginning of the process, you know, I received a detailed email letting me know what I needed, which I love because they send you a checklist and everything. This hand department is pretty thorough, and I know a lot of people kind of fuss about it, but you literally do get a quick reference guide at the very beginning when you switch to, you know, this phase of the process. You get a reference guide on how to get your property cleared through hand. You attend a workshop where you can get all your questions answered. All the handouts are provided electronically, so you can read over that. So it literally walks you through, hey, you got your inspection report. This is what we're going to do with that. This is your responsibility. You get your repair list. This is what you do with that. This is your responsibility. It talks about what the seller repairs mean and, you know, things of that nature. So also, if for some reason the home needs a bit more work or rehabilitation, there's some information on that, and that's where you move to the rehab escrow portion, basically where you roll over additional components into your loan. Okay, so again, they cover the waivers, your next steps, every single thing is outlined. So even though you can't memorize the whole thing, you could, I guess, but why, why really try to commit it all to memory? Is right here so that you don't miss anything. So where I am right now is my appraisal came back. I had some low-key anxiety about that. Not real bad, but it's just nerve-wracking because you want your property to be appraised, at the proper value. I believe I shared with you all when the home was listed, I did offer just a little bit above the asking price because I wanted to be competitive and very interested in the home. So what has happened is that appraisal has come back slightly lower than the asking price. It's less than 10,000, but it's still a little bit lower. So there's like some considerations, a conversation surrounding that. My realtor and I had talked about what this would look like. I do have a contingency in my contract that spoke to if the appraisal came back a certain way. And so again, I feel pretty good about where we are with that, and did some additional negotiations with the seller. And what generally happens when your appraisal comes in higher, absolutely, of course, that's great, and you go in to your purchase with equity, right, day one. But when your appraisal comes back lower, then no, you don't go in day one with equity. However, depending upon how much lower, it just, you'll recoup that money because, the home accelerates in value. However, like I said, the gap was not that large. And so what has happened, we've renegotiated the price. And the three things that tends to happen is the price can be renegotiated once the seller is made aware of the appraisal report. NACA requires that you share, you can share that information with the seller within a couple of days of receiving that information. And then the seller has 3 days to respond with what the next steps are. And so again, because I had a contingency in my contract, that also helped dictate parts of the next step. The seller could say, I don't want to move my price. That's it. This is the price. And NACA has some ideas, distinct ideas about where the members land, right? NACA is looking out for members. And so you've probably been reading and hearing how so many people are bidding way over, like way over asking. I wasn't trying to do that. And I think that the appraisal, I'm not cheering about it, but I do believe it was fair based on the comps and the properties. They could have went up a little higher, but I'm not going to battle that because at the end of the day, the properties were comparable in the surrounding area based on size, etc. I read their report. I read it. So my seller opted to meet me halfway. And so they did lower the price, not all the way down to the exact appraisal amount. So this is going to be interesting to see how this part plays out. But I don't see it as a stress point at all, because at the end of the day, I could either pay this money in the form of my bank loan with, even though it's a low interest, paying interest, or I can end up paying another way. I end up paying, my plan is to buy down my rate further anyway, but I'm not stressed about the appraisal gap because it was a small gap. NACA will allow that gap and allow the member to pay, the differences as long as there's sufficient income. It doesn't cut into the minimum required funds. And, they see where you're not giving every penny of what you have just to get in the home. So this goes back to the affordability. And so I'm fine with that. And that's why I didn't even, I wasn't bothered by them not wanting to purchase the detector because I'm like, hey, you're paying for windows, you're paying for the chimney to get fixed and the electrical outlet and that leak. I'm good. I'm good. So that's where I am with that. The seller did agree, and I've uploaded that information. So anytime there's a change to the contract, even if it's a change of the closing date or the title agent or anything of that nature, it needs to be uploaded. So my to-dos right now are really just to maintain my documentation and wait for the initial feedback from the mortgage department. So what NACA does is right now that mortgage phase is basically where it's in a few phases, right? So I'm just looking at my little cheat sheet here. That initial process was where the mortgage application was received, being processed. You get a loan estimate, and they look at the interest rate during that phase. The pre-decision is where the processors are working on the file to get it to the underwriting. Now, my current status is underwriting. It's in the underwriting section, and it's under initial review. And so I'm awaiting the initial credit decision by the Bank of America's underwriting department. So just to give you clarity to this process, up until this point, you've been doing all the work with NACA counselors, okay, and NACA team members to get you ready for this handoff to the Bank of America or whoever the lender is, Bank of America. And so now, you move on to the Bank of America underwriting team. NACA has prepped us for this moment. And so now I'm waiting on a decision. And then there's a number of decisions that can happen, right? Of course, there can be pending incomplete, which means there are some conditions. Pending decline, which means the file is suspended with conditions pending. Then there's what they call a second opportunity, and that is where the file is pending decline with a second, with the second underwriting review. And then there's a redecision where the file is pending decline with another underwriting review. We're not trying to get that far down. We want to get approved. We want to get approved. And so members can be approved, and the file can be underwritten and conditionally approved, pending conditions. And then once you move past that phase, you get clear to close. When you clear to close, the file is approved with no conditions, and it's just pending those final verifications. And then your clear to close final means your loan is ready for closing to be scheduled. And so the last phase underneath this mortgage process, all the conditions are cleared and your closing date is firm. And then you have your actual closing. So I'm going to show this snapshot here, on the side somewhere. I'll insert it. But it basically outlines the members web file, mortgage loan status, and the components. It's broken down into 5 sections that I just went over: the application, the pre-decision, the underwriting, the approved, and the closing. And then I went into the subcategories. And when you get the visual, it'll make sense. So I'm excited. That's where I am right now. It's just a waiting game. I went out and I had some frustration this week, even now. But you know what? It's just something designed to frustrate me, and I will not be moved. I'm going to stay positive. I'm going to stay motivated, despite the frustrations that I've experienced over the last 18 hours, or actually I'll say 24 hours at this point. But I should not be moved. Nope, I'm focused on the prize, getting these keys. My projected closing date is early next month. And for those of you who know me personally, you already know what it is with the month of November. Yeah. So yeah. I'm getting excited, but I'm trying to manage my expectations because I'm just so used to, I just have to wait until it's done. And then that's when I really feel the liberty to be excited. I think that's just a part of who I am. That's my mannerism. I celebrate in spurts, right? And I speak faith and confidence, but I'm still ready to get to the actual finish line. So hopefully this information has been helpful. I feel like I was a little scattered, but at the end of the day, if you've been watching my other videos, you kind of see where I'm going, boom, 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 systematically, that I'm just flowing through this process. I'm going to insert a couple of screenshots that kind of show my dashboard, that show the different sections, you know, how I've progressed. And so that gives you an idea. I want to say, you know, I really manage my expectations, but I am super excited on the inside, right? But I'm just trying to woosah, right? And just kind of celebrate as I go along, and also cheer on so many others. Congratulations to those of you that are, you know, pushing through this process and getting your different status updates. I'm in the NACA forums on Facebook. There are some unofficial and official forums, and you know, I am thankful for those groups and for the NACA cousins that, you know, provide their insight, their feedback, their cheers, their support, all of those things, you know, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of that, all of that. I appreciate those forums. If you're a NACA member and you're going through the process, go to those forums, check them out. You will get some really good insight. YouTube is great as well. You don't see as many people documenting their process anymore. And that's one of the reasons why I chose to document. I wanted to help myself in sharing, but also be a blessing to someone else. So this is where I am in my process. My next steps are to just kind of wait on this decision, but also to make sure that I stay in tune with my seller, report when the repairs are done, share those invoices, and listen, key thing, once the repairs are done, the inspector comes back out and reevaluates and affirms that the repairs are done. And anything else, if, you know, I did have a waiver that I'm going to submit for that one item on the detectors, I'm hoping NACA approves that waiver. And basically, they generally, what I've read is they will approve it as long as they know you have the funds to take care of that item. You know, you're not going to be destitute trying to take care of that item. So I believe that will be fine. But if not, then, you know, they kind of hand you off and they want to roll it into what they call that rehab escrow. I really don't want to go there because that's just gonna, to me, I think it'll prolong the process, because you generally speaking have to provide contractor estimates for that. I mean, smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors are generally, you know, you get them hardwired or not. And so if they're hardwired, of course, you get an electrician to put those in. But there are some organizations in my area locally that actually do those things for free. Like they'll come out, do an evaluation and install those. So I did find it interesting that the seller was, I guess the seller was like, look, I'm doing all this other stuff. They can do that. So I'm good with it though. I just thought that was interesting. But I'm so grateful for them meeting me, you know, part way in this process in terms of the price. I love the property and I'm just looking forward to making it my home. So y'all can pray with me, support, share, comment down below and tell me you're excited, right? So this is Sean, the Divine Diva. I will not forget my little snapshots at the end. I'll put some different helpful things to help you track where I'm going with all my conversation here, but I will give you another update. This has been update number 13. Have a great day and thank you for watching. Bye.